You are listening to the Mario Mukwanda Show on Salam Media. It is 6 minutes past 12 on this 24th day of February 2021, and it is Wednesday, just in case you don't know. Yeah, this is the last Wednesday of the month, by the way. All right, so we're going to be talking about self-harming behavior with Shuhaida Adam, a social worker at Islamic Care Line. Self-harm is intentionally direct injury of oneself, usually without a suicidal intention, but as a mechanism to cope with emotional pain, intense anger, and frustration. Shuhaida is on the other side to chat to us more about this. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, Shuhaida.
Walaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Such an important topic we're discussing today. I'm really glad that we're just highlighting it in the community. We need to know that it's prevalent. It is
Yeah.
very, very much a part of our various communities in South Africa.
hmm Now, if you can expand a little on the definition of self harm that I just shared, because most of us know self harm to be cutting oneself. People cut themselves, and then we're like, okay, they're self harming themselves. But there can be other ways to harm oneself. Tell us more.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, in the past few years, self-harm has become actually quite a lot of attention has been placed on it, especially in the media. In some series, there's been a focus on it, and oftentimes these programs are accused of sort of glorifying self-harm
Yeah.
behavior, suicidal behavior. So I think a lot of parents are concerned at what their young teenagers are exposed to. And the nice thing is that this has brought it to our conversation. It has brought it to our tables, and our parents are now becoming a lot more aware of this, that this is happening, and that it's possible that their own child could be engaging in this behavior and they wouldn't know. Because the nature
Yeah.
of self harm also is that it's secret, it's hidden away, it's covered up, so you wouldn't necessarily know about it. So, just in terms of understanding what exactly is it, so you've introduced it very nicely when you spoke about the self harm, right? And it's
hmm
any behavior that causes harm to themselves. So, it's self inflicting. And like you said, also usually as a way to cope with difficult or distressing thoughts and emotions.
hmm
And it's not suicidal by nature. So most people who engage in self-harm behavior, like you said also, it's not an intention to commit suicide. It's an intention to inflict harm. Unfortunately, sometimes accidentally also, the nature of the harm that the person inflicts upon themselves, it then becomes quite serious, and then the person may end up dying because of that injury inflicted on themselves. But the intention was not suicide, right? However, and we'll speak a little bit later about how people just get caught up in a cycle. People who engage in self-harm behavior, they do run the risk of becoming suicidal because they are very caught up in this cycle of self-harm and all the thoughts, the feelings, the behaviors around it. It may then lead people to become very overwhelmed with what they're going through, and they may then become suicidal. But we just need to distinguish that in the beginning, that it's not
Yeah.
suicide behavior. Suicidal behavior is separate, right? Self harm, then, it's not also a disorder on its own. It's not a mental disorder on its own, but it is a mental health problem. And people
Okay.
who have other mental health conditions, mental health disorders, so people who have possibly substance use disorder or a dissociative identity disorder, um, other mental health disorders, personality disorders, they may utilize self harm in that disorder that they have, and the behavior that they engage in. Then they may utilize self harm as part of a range of other behaviors as part of coping, right? So, like you said also earlier, that it commonly takes the form of cutting. So, and I think also in the media and in the series that we see and that we watch, it's just it's seen as cutting, and people have these cuts on their arms and cuts on their legs. But like you said, it can take different forms also. It's not necessarily cutting only of the skin. People can also pull their hair out. They can don't necessarily cut their skin. They can bite their skin. They can, acts of pinching skin. People burn their bodies also. They can burn on their skin. They can burn on their hands, etc., as a means of self-harm. And then people who have wounds, so they already have some cuts or other little injuries, they may then carry on picking on that, and they may carry on adding injury to that, so that the wound doesn't heal and it stays in a perpetual state of being damaged and being in that injury. And then people who also engage in, like I said earlier, with their hair also, people can cut their hair, people can pull on it. The idea is to inflict pain upon yourself. So pulling on it or cutting it in a very haphazard way. Even in terms of your scalp, poking on it, people can use things like pins and that they can poke on themselves. As long as it can inflict some form of harm, they can hit themselves even. So you don't even need an item. Somebody can hit themselves or force some form of physical injury on themselves without using an item or weapon or something. And then also people can inflict self-harm through ingesting substances, utilizing things like pesticides, sprays, etc., ingesting harmful substances without the intention of suicide, right? So again, the intention behind self-harm behavior is to inflict physical pain upon the person. And the idea behind this physical pain is that the physical pain it's linked to emotions, it's linked to emotional pain also. Because you must understand, what drives self-harm is a lot of emotional pain. So when we are struggling with our emotions, when we are going through a lot of where there's a lot of social difficulty and linked to that, the emotional pain. And the emotion, we're struggling to cope with that, and people are unable to express that. They don't have healthy means of expressing that, or more vocal, and they don't have the capacity to vocalize their feelings. Or even if they do, it's then they're possibly in an environment that doesn't allow for that, or doesn't accept people sharing their feelings and what they're going through. Then people then internalize it, they turn inwards, and then they inflict the harm upon themselves. So it's very intense, it's very complicated. It's also something that requires specialized intervention to help with. However, having said that if people do require the help, they can reach out to whoever they feel they need to, even if it's your local GP, if it's a counselor at the time, and then that person will be able to help you get to a point where we can then further send you for further specialized treatment, if that's the case. But just to mention that I've also had 1 or 2 young clients, adolescents, and they are amazing. The way they've grown through so much difficulty. Some of them have actually given up self-harming behavior, but specifically cutting. Some of them have given it up on their own, just through their own mental willpower. They made that decision, they recognized the harm that it was doing, and they recognized how they would get caught up in it. And amazingly, young people, 15, 14 years old, have given it up on their own. So I was really astounded to hear something like that. So I just want to share that also. I know we always think of doom and gloom, but and when we unpack these issues, it's always just quite intense, but we need to know also that it's amazing human will, especially young people. The resilience, it can astound us. The reason why we focus also on young people, especially with self-harming behavior, is because by and large they form the common population that engages in this. However, because it's been around for quite a while, so it usually starts at a young age, and then if it starts becoming a part of their life, it becomes a habit, it becomes their coping mechanism. And then as they get older, they enter university age, they now young adults, and if they haven't addressed this behavior and they haven't put a stop to it, they can then carry it over into their young adulthood also. So it's not just a teenage thing, or people who are going through teenage dramas. It's something very serious, and there are many young adults, and it can spill over to even older adults who then engage in this also. So it actually, although it's much more prevalent in younger people, it is present in older ages also. So it's just something that we all need to be aware of, because even as people, if they start families, they get married, etc., just know that if this is there, it's something that's possibly also being carried over from a young age, and this is how they've learned to cope with emotional difficulties and emotional pain. So
All right.
yes, it can manifest itself in many different ways and also across different ages.
There was a trend back, I can't remember how far back, where young kids, teenagers, used to choke themselves. I don't know if they were choking themselves for fun, or was it a part of self harming, or something along those lines. But it was really concerning. So I'd like to find out a little bit more about that, whether it constitutes to self harm or not. But hold that thought. We're going to take a break and we will continue after. I am so sleepy. Yo, ya Allah. Maybe this is why I feel dizzy.
It's almost snack time, don't worry.
Yeah. Welcome back. You're listening to the Mario Mukwanda Show on Salam Media. It is 12:19 on this Wednesday, the 24th of February, 2021. We are talking about self-harming behavior with the Islamic Care Line social worker Shuhaida Adam. Shuhaida, shukran for joining me, for staying on the line as well. Now, before the break, I asked about this behavior where young kids would be choking themselves, and it was very odd seeing such things, because it is rather concerning that somebody would want to choke themselves and get some thrill or rush out of it. Does that constitute to a self-harming as well, or is it just for the fun, just to trend on social media?
So from what I read, it also falls along that self-harming behavior, and
Mm-hmm.
it also depends on the intention of the child. There are children who will do this because they're in the group that's doing it, right? And they don't necessarily engage in other form of self-harm. But usually you'd find that the children who are sort of the drivers of it, and the ones
Yeah.
who are engaging and encouraging others, or the ones who are very caught up in this asphyxiation game. So
Mm.
they are the ones who have underlying issues. With any
Okay.
form of self-harming behavior, there are underlying issues. And also the outcome of this asphyxiation, it's usually similar to the outcome of self-harming behavior. So let's just look a
Mm-hmm.
little bit back at self-harm. When people utilize in any form of self-inflicted injury for psychological and emotional purposes, it's meant to relieve the pressure and relieve other emotional pains that they are going through, emotional difficulties. So people can get caught up in a cycle of self-harm where they are feeling emotional problems. They're feeling the emotions surrounding the problems they're facing, for example, bullying or a very difficult family environment coming from abuse, children who have been physically abused, children who are facing ongoing sexual abuse. They have no other outlet, right? And
Mm-hmm.
even in terms of their own self-esteem, children who are struggling with self-esteem. So they are experiencing emotional pain, and the self-harm then allows, it's almost like an outlet for the physical pain to then overshadow the emotional pain, and it allows them to feel some relief from the emotional, all the pain, the thoughts, the feelings, the difficulty that's going on in the mind that is that's their world at that point. So it allows that. It brings a form of relief, but also there's a
Mm-hmm.
rush of endorphins. So when this person engages in this, sometimes there's a thrill towards it also because of the secrecy around it and the physical action that I'm doing something rather dangerous. It's risky, and they try to see how far they can go with it. And there's a little bit of a physical thrill associated with it. So the body becomes a bit thrilled. The body systems react automatically. They then start releasing whatever it is that they need to release. One of it is endorphins, as far as I've read. So that can then, it causes a marked change. And now this person recognizes that this helps me feel better purely because there's a bit of a rush. So even this choking, it is one of the actions of self-harm. And when people do that choke, from what I remember of the game also, you had to choke up to quite a serious point. It wasn't just a
Mm.
very instant thing. You had to get to a certain point where it was almost where you were passing out and there was a physical change happening. So the body then released that endorphins, and it was almost like a natural high would come out of it. So that's what people would then be chasing, and that it can become addictive also. And it
Mm.
becomes, it's also quite easy to do. So it becomes quite easy for them to engage in when they're going through all this, the difficulty, the emotional problems. It's very easy to utilize. It's very easy also to keep to yourself. It's very common to hide these things, like we said earlier. Also, when it occurs on the body and when people inflict it on their bodies, then it's usually in areas that they keep covered. So families wouldn't, you wouldn't pick it up as a parent, even you wouldn't necessarily pick it up. However, I'm sure parents are now wondering, what do you do if you do pick it up, or if you do
Yes.
know that your child is engaging in this? So, okay, the first thing let's look at is what other behaviors are you noticing with your child? If you're suspecting that your child is engaging in some form of self-harm, look also at their other behaviors. Are you picking up anything else? Are they becoming withdrawn? Are they struggling with either their social life, or they're struggling with the family
Mm.
interactions? As adolescents grow, then naturally there tends to be a bit of conflict in the home because they're now asserting themselves as young adults also. And as a parent, possibly um, you're not used to that at this point. So the conditions at home are not necessarily allowing for open engagement, right? So if a parent suspects that, look at the other behaviors. Is they also look at, you should know your child also, and your child's emotional well-being, their sense of self, their self-esteem, etc., their sense of self-confidence. Also have be very, very clued up on what's going on in school. Are they facing bullying? Are they specifically being targeted by a certain person?
Mm-hmm.
How are they coping with that? What's been going on with that? Right? So know everything, know what's going on. If you do suspect it, it's a very, very difficult conversation to have with your child, but it's one that you have to have. And we ask parents to be very supportive, not to go in very aggressively, very strong, and wanting to punish this child, because punishment is not going to stop the behavior.
Yes.
Taking away privileges, fighting with your child, essentially getting into a big fight about it, it's not going to help. It's possibly going to drive them even further into this behavior, right? Try what you can to remove, if you know that, for example, that they're using a knife or they're using razors or something, try and take that away, reduce the access. But by and large, it's in communication, support, and emotional well-being, and then therapeutic intervention also. So as a parent, let your child know that you do support them, you are there for them. If they're struggling, but get to the point where they're able to tell you what's going on in their mind. Build a relationship with your child. It's really, really critical to have that going. So have open communication, open dialogue. Let your child feel comfortable that they can tell you that they're struggling, that this is what's going on. And some children who have mental health disorders, oftentimes it's not also even what's really going on in the world around them. There could be a chemical imbalance. It could be natural causes, right? So mental health disorders also, some have natural causes also. So it could be that, and they are quite uncertain. They don't know what's going on. They know that they shouldn't be feeling like this, but they don't know how to address it. So as a parent, your main thing is to be supportive, have open communication, let them come and share with you, help care for them also, and support them through any therapy, that whatever they're going through. Therapy also is not, it's not just that one session is going to cure everything and everything's going to be fine. It often takes a lot of years for somebody to get to a certain point where they need therapy. So it's going to take quite a while also to unpack all of that that has brought them there. And then also to help this young person then develop alternative methods of coping with pain, coping with emotional pain, and coping with distress, also helping them, giving them a toolbox. And this they also get with counseling and with therapy, right? They'll get that. It's an alternative toolbox. It's activities that they can utilize. It's also a lot of work with a lot of mental work that they have to do, but it comes with therapy and with consistency and with commitment to change. But having said that word commitment, also most therapists talk about that the person engaging in it has to be willing to change. They have to want to put a stop to this behavior. They have to want to engage in therapy also. Hospitalization can occur in very serious situations. They can occur, but just know that also hospitalizing the child is not necessarily going to take it away, because you have to do the work behind it. You have to do the therapy behind it so that we can put a stop to it. Hospitalization is a short, immediate, necessary, possibly intervention. But the long-term work then starts from there also. So as parents, you'll have to engage with your child, keep that support, keep it going. Try not to also stigmatize them or sort of make them feel as if they are now engaging in something extremely horrific and that they cannot be a part of the family. Engage with them, keep them a part of the family, reach out to them, do not cut them off. It's very difficult also for parents. We do understand, and that's why we also offer support for parents also. How can you support your child and how can you support yourself? All of this can take a toll on family life because oftentimes there's other children who also need the parental attention. The couple, if the parents are together, then the couple, they also need to focus on their marriage, and there's a lot going on and people are working, so there's a lot that they have to focus on. So we try to support them as much as we can on our side. And then hopefully also we'll get the child to a point that they don't engage in this behavior again.
Wow, there is no part-time parenting. So if anybody out there is thinking that there's an easy way out of it, newsflash, there isn't. Because once you
No,
decide to
no,
become a
no.
parent, it is a full-time job. Okay, quickly here, a question from our WhatsApp. The person has seen a video of a small child who used to jump off the top of his bunk bed over and over and over again. So, is that behavior to be worried about as well? Like, they have a bunk bed and they find fun in jumping off of it.
Okay, so if they're finding fun, let's look at just giving them some alternatives. Also recognize that some children, well, actually not some children, a lot of children, they engage in risky behavior with the belief that nothing will happen to them. So the intention is not to inflict any harm on themselves. And also a lot of adolescents also engage in risky behavior with the belief that nothing will happen to them. And the injuries and accidents all happen to other people. It doesn't happen to me. It's sort of like an invincible fallacy, so to say, that I can jump off a bed at the top of the bed, okay, nothing. And remember, if the child has been doing it over and over again, the first time nothing did happen to the child, second time nothing did
Yes.
happen to the child. So it's reinforced in their mind that nothing's going to happen to me, I'm not going to get hurt. So again, let's just look at the intention of what they are doing. Risky behavior without the intention of harming themselves, that would be something separate, and that a parent can then deal with possibly through giving them alternative means of having the same similar kind of fun. That way, a person is jumping off high, very risky behavior because of they are escaping from some form of pain and they're getting no joy from it. There's no fun in it. There's no real fun in it. If it does seem like there's some form of fun, it's very superficial. And you find that also with a lot of people who are older and when they are engaging in very risky behavior accompanying mental health disorders. So, for example, bipolar also. It may seem like they're having the time of their lives, but it's on a very superficial level. There's a lot going on the inside, and it's not something that they're truly enjoying. So just be aware that also the intention, and we look at what is this person getting out of it. Okay.
All right. Okay, Shuhaida, shukran so much for your time and for sharing that information with us. Definitely a topic to be discussed, self-harming behavior. And we'll chat to you once again soon, inshallah.
Inshallah. Shukran again for addressing the topic with us. And if the listeners are interested, they can contact us at the Care Line on 011 373 8080 if they want further information. Okay.
Shukran. Have a wonderful day. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
That was Shuhaida Adam, social worker at Islamic Care Line, talking about this topic, this issue of self-harming behavior. And if your child is just jumping off of the bed, seeking thrill out of it, they're probably just doing it for the fun of it. But yeah, do recognize for the other signs and behavioral changes in your tween, perhaps around the ages of 9 to probably 16. Yeah, look out for any behavioral changes there, self-harming, because this could be if not tackled, it could lead to something worse as they grow older. But do stay with us for further comments, questions, queries, or suggestions. Please leave them in our comments section over here, or you can send them to us on WhatsApp. The number is 0617 We will be right back.